Good evening, everyone. It's 6:31, and before I call the meeting to order, I will ask everyone to please silence or turn off cell phones or other personal electronic devices. And I'll call this meeting to order at 6:31 p.m. by recognizing the traditional keepers of this land and specifically our neighbors of the Alderville First Nation with a formal territorial acknowledgement. We respectfully acknowledge that the municipality of Brighton is located on the Mississauga Anishinaabe territory and is the traditional territory of the Mississauga. The Council of the Municipality of Brighton respectfully acknowledges that the Mississauga Nations are the collective stewards and caretakers of these lands and waters in perpetuity, and that they continue to maintain this responsibility to ensure their health and integrity for generations to come. Before we move to the approval of the agenda, I will note that both Deputy Mayor Anderson and Councillor Wright are unable to join us this evening. And with at least one of them during announcements, I will provide some more information. Approval of the agenda, moved by Councillor Fredis, seconded by Councillor Rowley, that Council approve the August 14th, 2023 Council agenda as presented. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? The motion's carried. Members of Council, do you have any declarations of pecuniary interest? And if so, please state the general nature thereof. There are none noted. Are there any announcements this evening? I have two. The first is to note that the first Brighton Arts and Culture Council Art in the Park was held not last weekend, the weekend before, with great success, apparently. They were very happy with the turnout. They were very happy with the vendors, and it was a nice day. It was good to see everyone out and about. My other announcement is not so cheery. As Council is already aware, Deputy Mayor Anderson had what his doctors are now referring to as a minor stroke on Friday afternoon. Ron is responding well to treatment, and although he will take some time to heal, we do look forward to welcoming him back when he is ready and able to do so. I will provide Council with updates as I receive them, and we will consider a report to extend the Deputy Mayor a wellness leave to provide him with the time that he and his healthcare team need for his recuperation. I know that everyone will keep the Andersons in their thoughts and prayers as Ron and Nancy deal with this situation that they're going through at the moment. Adoption of the minutes. It's moved by Councillor Fredis, seconded by Councillor Rowley, that Council adopt the July 24th, 2023 Council meeting minutes as presented. Is there any discussion? Those in favor? Being none opposed, that motion is carried. And a motion moved by Councillor Fredis, seconded by Councillor Rowley, that Council adopt the July 26th, 2023 Council planning meeting minutes as presented. Is there any discussion? All in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. We have no public meeting this evening, which brings us to our presentation. Council will hear one presentation this evening. The presenter has 15 minutes to provide Council with their information. It is noted that language, content, and conduct must always remain respectful. Council will be provided with an opportunity to ask questions of clarification from the presentation representatives based on the information they have presented. Council is reminded this is not an opportunity to engage in debate with the presenters nor advance a public policy position. Presenters are reminded that Council does not make decisions during the presentation portion of this evening's meeting. Our presentation is being conducted by Wendy Warner, the Executive Director of Trenton Memorial Hospital Foundation, and Heather Tobey of Tobey Developments. You're both always welcome, but thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much. Technology. Also joining us tonight are Stephen Tobey and Gerald Dreistrup. And I'll just wait for the presentation to come up. It's a pleasure to be here tonight. Thank you all for allowing us this opportunity at a short notice. We very much appreciate it. The Trenton Memorial Hospital Foundation, as you know, is the fundraising arm for Quinte Health for Trenton Memorial. That's our primary focus. But before I get into too much of that, I just want to say how pleased we are with the partnership that we've developed with the municipality of Brighton, not only with the support we've received for our medical equipment, but also for the support of the Docks by the Bay program. It's been a pleasure to work with you and have Deputy Mayor Anderson on our committee as well. And recently we had Councillor Fredis at our PRR meeting, and it's just been a great pleasure to work with the municipality. So thank you all very much. So tonight, I wanted to talk to you about the needs at the Trenton Memorial Hospital and how we go about helping to fundraise and support those needs. So at the Trenton Memorial Hospital this year alone, we need to raise $2.1 million. Priority equipment, medical equipment, is not funded by the government. It is in fact funded by all of us. So the equipment that we use at Trenton Memorial Hospital, whether it's a defibrillator or hospital bed or stretchers or what have you, is funded by us. We do not receive any United Way funding, government funding, or hospital funding whatsoever. All of the proceeds from any donations that the foundation receives go 100% to the donation. We do have a restricted fund that covers the costs of our salaries and our operating costs, so you can be confident in that. Tonight, what we want to talk to you about is raising funds for the heart of a healthy community. The concept is a pretty simple concept, to be honest. The concept is about building a residential home from the goods and services donated by various trades and suppliers and then sold. All the net proceeds are then donated to the Trenton Memorial Hospital Foundation. It's not a raffle. It's not a lottery. It's a home built by the community for the community. So the background is such that back in 1989, there was our very first home built by West Hill Contractors. Nick Stakos and Phil Pinellas led the way with the Rotary Club of Trenton. And at that time, it raised about $200,000. And that's net proceeds. None of the foundation does not have to expense any proceeds, any effort whatsoever, or any funds towards the building of this home. That's what makes it really successful for us. Since that time, we've had 4 more homes built by Stakos Homes, Gertzma Homes, McDonald Homes, and Clemencic Homes. And tonight we are really proud to announce that Heather and Stephen Tobey and Gordon Tobey Developments Limited are our 6th home build, but our very first in Brighton, in the municipality of Brighton. As I mentioned earlier, the provincial government provides the funding for the operating costs for a hospital. So they keep the lights on and the hydro and they pay the staffing costs, but they do not fund the medical equipment. And, you know, the one thing I say to people is if you go to an emergency room and you have a heart attack, the last thing you want to do is see the defibrillator duct taped together. You know, so the equipment is really only as good as we fund. And we can only recruit and retain the medical staff with that kind of equipment that they're used to working on. They don't want to come out of high school or med school, I should say, you know, working with equipment that, like I said, it could be duct taped together. It could be 10 years old. It could be out of date. That's not the kind of people we want, nor is that the kind of care that we actually deserve. So we've been very fortunate because it is really hard to raise that kind of money in our small communities. And this was a really unique way with the Homebuild for Healthcare to generate the funds necessary to support our campaign year after year. The Homebuild for Healthcare up until this time has raised over $1.2 million for Trenton Memorial Hospital. So it's been extremely successful. These are just some photographs of some of our Homebuild for Healthcare projects. We're always really happy to be able to demonstrate the various trades and suppliers that are involved in it. With some of these are obviously the groundbreaking ceremonies. Some of these pictures are homes that have been built. And you can see they're beautiful homes, they're brand new homes. And what's really exciting about the project is quite often it starts off being, you know, the typical model home. But as people get involved and they get to understand why they're doing it and what the purpose is for, which we are intending to determine shortly when the capital equipment list comes out, people are really excited to get involved. And so sometimes people that wouldn't otherwise be involved will contact the developers and say, how do I get involved? So quite often the home ends up being a lot more than even what the developer had planned. So it's pretty exciting. Next slide. So to date, we've had over 268 local trades and suppliers from our local community that have demonstrated the commitment to supporting our hospital Homebuild for healthcare. So tonight we're here because we're really hoping that the municipality of Brighton will be also on our list of donors for the Gordon Tobey Developments Limited, sorry, wrong slide, new home. We've been very fortunate, like I said before, we've had the support of Belleville, we've had the support of Quinte West in helping waive those government fees, municipal fees that the developer may have to incur. We're also very fortunate that, we already have Sam Burgess, one of the lawyers in town, has donated his fees that'll be involved in the sale of the home. And the lawyer Dan Thompson has already donated his fees for the buyer who's purchasing this home. And of course, Stephen and Heather have already donated the lot. So, those are huge, huge commitments to our hospital and to the healthcare of our community. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Heather and let her talk about the house. Move here.
Thanks, Wendy. So as you see here, we're planning to build this home in our phase 4 of our Hamilton Woods development. The lot is located on Beacon Drive, and we're going to build for the first time our gray birch model. This is a no basement home suitable for retirees, and these are the people that often move to Brighton. So we're hoping that it will be a desirable home, and it will also have a loft to provide space for guests, children, grandchildren, and such. Stephen and I are very excited to partner with Wendy. We've always wanted to do something for our community to give back, and we felt this was a great way to do that. We've set our fundraising goal in the neighborhood of $400,000. So with your support, we hope to achieve that. Like I said, we're excited to get the whole community involved, not just our regular suppliers and trades, but anyone who wants to join us. So thank you for listening.
So we're very happy to take any questions that people may have coming forward. And we certainly are looking forward to having support from the municipality of Brighton to partner with us along the way as this house is being built and ready for sale in June, we hope, 2024.
Nice. Well, thank you very much for the presentation and for the information. Before I open the floor to questions, I will note that there is correspondence later in the agenda. As you know, we don't make decisions at this portion, but we can certainly make a decision around the correspondence portion, if we're ready to do so, or we may ask staff for more information. But we'll see where all that ends up going. So, members of council, are there any questions of clarification for the presenters? That's usually good news.
That's great. I think that's great.
That's usually good news.
Well, thank you very much.
The motion before me is, and before I let you go, this is certainly not the first request we've had from a charity looking to build something in order to either move their mission forward or for this kind of purpose. So we have in the past done exactly what you're asking us to do. So I say that just as I guess as a hint to those members of council who may not know that, who haven't been around as long as some of us.
That's also very good news. Thank you.
Moved by Councillor Fredis, seconded by Councillor Rowley, that council received the delegation from Wendy Warner, Executive Director, Trent Memorial Hospital Foundation, and Heather Tobey Developments regarding the 6th home build for healthcare in support of the Trenton Memorial Hospital for first build in Brighton. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Are there any opposed? Motion's carried. Deputy Clerk, are there any citizens' comments this evening? The Director of Finance is saying no. Thank you. Brings us to staff reports. The first report is the 2024 pre-budget report. Director Whitfield, we've read your report. Do you have anything to add or highlight?
No, I do not.
I have a motion moved by Councillor Fredis, seconded by Councillor Butwell, that council receive the 2024 pre-budget report as information. and that council sets a preliminary capital levy levy including a 1% increase over the 2023 capital levy, plus the June 2023 CPI increase up to 2%, and further that council approve the 2024 budget guidelines, numbers 1 to 17, as provided in this report. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? The motion's carried. Next report is next steps for procedural bylaw review. Deputy Clerk, we've read the clerk's report. Do you have anything to add or highlight?
No, I do not.
I have a motion moved by Councillor Fredis, seconded by Councillor Butwell. The council received the staff report entitled Next Steps for Procedural Bylaw Review, and further that council direct staff to create a committee of the whole meeting scheduled for September for the review of the procedural bylaw. Is there any discussion? Councillor Butwell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you to the clerk. I just had a couple of questions with respect to what is in the report itself. Perhaps with the clerk not being here, we may not get the answers, but I had a few questions related to some items referring to second page, best practices from municipalities through the province will be reviewed, and staff will also incorporate review from external parliamentary experts to an appropriate degree. Is there a list of people that the clerk has consulted in the past for these types of things, and is there a budgetary cost to any of this?
Deputy Clerk.
So when it comes to the best practices for municipalities, all clerks and deputy clerks from the county meet on a quarterly basis about and discuss these types of things, whatever everybody's going through at the time. You know, whether it be the election, we had met lots of times and discussed that, and if almost everybody's going through it, everybody's at a different step of the process right now, but we will probably ask everybody their opinions and thoughts and what are they doing and what is working for them, so that we can bring that information to you to say this is what's working for Port Hope or the county, etc. As far as parliamentary experts, the clerk didn't give me a list or names of anybody specifically. I do know in the past she's used Debbie Wilcox, who is really well known and is a consultant, but in general, she doesn't, I guess she would have to come to you guys to really say that we wanted to use her as a consultant, but she's a great resource to just bounce a couple questions off of.
Okay, I just because we have what are we at 444 municipalities in this province, and we do have 5 wonderful municipalities locally here in Northumberland County, but was maybe wondering if there was a group, whether AMCTO or AMO might have some resources that she may have relied upon in the past that we might do so again.
Any resources that she has, I'm sure she is relying on. When it comes to AMCTO, there's definitely people we can reach out to there.
And not expected to have any financial impact to us?
Not generally.
And
no.
not generally, so conversational?
Yeah.
Exchange of documents, okay. And I also wanted to just ask very quickly about, where's my note here? So it appears that we're striking this committee of the whole, which is great process. And that in the meantime, moving up to that committee of the whole meeting schedule, that it would be the intention that individual councillors would be just having discussions with staff about what the types of things they're wanting to see changes made, etc. From a timeline point of view and a process point of view, would it not make more sense to find out what those best practices are and have those entrenched in maybe a draft document or whatnot, so that we are actually commenting on the best practices as opposed to our existing policy that might be completely repealed and replaced at some point anyways. It seems like it would take up less time and less maybe doubling back on things. Just because I know that we've been asked to have that conversation before the meetings begin.
So I'll just chime in here. The
Sure.
existing procedure bylaw was provided to us, which we
Mhm.
massaged to our own purposes in Brighton, but was provided to us by Principals Integrity.
Okay.
So our integrity commissioner did their thing and then
Okay.
provided to any of their municipalities that they work for procedure bylaw as they are wont to do, and they do this for staff council relations policies and all of those things as well.
Okay.
So same with this one. The last time we revamped the procedure bylaw, which I think was early in the last term of council.
I think it was amended in 2021, but
Okay.
otherwise first implemented early
Right.
last term of council.
So they might review whatever we come forward with again and cross-reference with the other policies and. et
I
cetera.
would anticipate that council would want the clerk to have the integrity commissioner review whatever it is we end up
Okay.
with.
Okay, I believe I am done with my questions. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Thank you both. Councillor Fredis.
To the chair, thank you. I noted in the summary here that council is invited to submit in writing any items that they wish to see reviewed or changed prior to that committee, the whole meeting. Can you give me a time deadline so that I know what I'm working towards? So that
She's just noted September, and I would say that, as long as it's up to council when, if we're looking towards the end of September, or she didn't really include a date specifically. I would suspect that she would reach out to you guys all as a whole and suggest some dates.
But for the purposes of this, I would suggest if you could have comments in by the end of this month, that gives you lots of runway and the clerk lots of runway to put a report together too. Councillor Boutwell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Follow up through you to the clerk. Do we know what everyone's contributions are going to look like? Are we going to be coming back with everybody's suggestions so that we can review everything? I like to hear other people's ideas so that we can discuss why they might work or might not work, and it's also in the spirit of open, transparent government as well.
Deputy Clerk.
I believe her intention is to not necessarily, recommend to council a draft bylaw. I suspect she will draft the bylaw encompassing everybody's suggestions and trying to make something work. And then the report will kind of spell out what the suggestions were for everybody to kind of discuss. And the idea of the committee of the whole is so that it can be more discussion based and a little less formal.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else? All those in favor? Being none opposed, that motion's carried. Brings us to the Brighton Strategic Plan 2023. CAO, we've read your report. Do you have anything to add or highlight, sir?
My only comments are that over the course of the last 6 months or so, we've established a committee, an internal committee comprised of both council members and senior staff. And the purpose of that committee, or the mandate of that committee, was to reach out to council members, staff members, and most importantly, the public with respect to where they wanted us to go and what types of items that they wanted us to deal with over the course of the next 10-year period. Certainly, we've retained a consultant to assist us in facilitating public input back in May. And we've had a committee of the whole meeting back in late June with council members to talk about various strategic initiatives. And then over the course of the last month or so, the review team has tried to consolidate all of the various inputs and come up with a document for your consideration this evening. Very exciting times. It's quite frankly my game plan, or the staff's game plan, with respect to where council wants to take this community over the course of the next 10-year period. Beyond that, happy to answer any questions and feel free for the rest of the team members who are here and have participated to chime in.
Thank you, CAO. It's moved by Councillor Fredis and seconded by Councillor Butwell that Council adopt the Brighton Strategic Plan 2023 as depicted in Schedule 1 attached here 2, and that the Strategic Plan Review Team be disbanded. Comments or questions? Councillor Fredis.
To the chair, thank you, and to the CAO and staff. First off, I think it's a wonderful plan. I like the way it's laid out and clearly identified by key target areas. But I have some observations or suggestions for what they might be worth. For example, under item F, public safety, there seems to be somewhat of a similarity between item 3 and item 7. And I'm wondering if there's some merit in merging those two with perhaps an A part and a B part to provide that alternate transit route to the industrial park. Now, perhaps there's a good rationale for the distinction, and I can't appreciate it. So any enlightenment there would be most beneficial.
CAO.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Similar concepts, similar goals, similar strategy in nature, and there's some nuances associated with it. As you're aware, we approved the budgeting for a transportation master plan this year. Mr. Whiteman and his team has recently, I think, awarded that contract over the course of the last month or so. And that consulting firm will assist us in establishing our long-term game plan with respect to transportation needs. And that may play into both of these initiatives. It may play into an EA process, environmental assessment process, that will have to be embarked upon in order to facilitate any type of crossing of the rail yards. So typically through an EA process, and Mr. Whiteman, you can jump in here anytime because you're more intimate with it than I am. But typically through an EA process, there's a variety of different options that you're considering, a variety of different routes that you're considering. So quite frankly, John Street, while it's indicated in here, may not be the ultimate crossing of the rail lines. It might be somewhere else. There might be 3 or 4 different options that for a variety of different reasons, we may choose to go with. So while we're suggesting John Street, it may be Bose Road, it might be somewhere else in between. Don't know until we've gone through the EA process. So the whole overpass issue could be distinct from going from our industrial park and hooking up with 64. Might be 2 different issues, depending what options come through the EA process. Beyond that, Mr. Whiteman, jump in here.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to try and simplify what Bob said. It could be construed. It could be construed that 3 and 7, item 3 and 7 could very well be the same one and the same thing. It could be, and like Bob said, there would possibly be an EA process that needs to take place, and very well could be John Street, considering underpass and overpass, etc. Yes. Okay. It could be construed either way, right? 3 and 7. So again, different scenarios, but it could very well be John Street, to sum it up simply.
The other
Thank you,
thing,
thank you.
through you, Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
The other thing that we have to recognize is that this is a living document, and we're going to be reviewing it on an annual basis, and priorities and situations change. So as we go through the transportation master plan and assess the various recommendations, as we go through the EA process for an overpass or underpass on the tracks, we may change gears, and which may take us back to this document. We may make some amendments accordingly. It's a living document.
So what I'm hearing is, while it's likely one project in 2 pieces, it may also not be. It's government speak.
It's government speak. So I thank you for the clarification. I guess I don't disagree with what's here, and I understand the flexibility or variability. And perhaps it's my old corporate background in writing strategic plans, where a strategic thrust or initiative was written broadly enough to address those sort of contingencies so that one wasn't having to revisit all the time, but you still have this guiding document for direction. So forgive me if it's my corporate thinking getting in the way, but I understand where we're at, and I have no problems with that. I just thought I'd raise the issue. If I may come on to another item here on housing and supply. Items 4 and 5 have some striking similarity, and item 4 in particular references high density housing through development of a secondary plan. But I note that the preparation of a secondary plan is item 6 on the strategic thrust initiative. So it kind of strikes me like we're backing into it from the development of policies first and into a strategic plan. And I'm wondering if perhaps the secondary plan should be actually number 4, and then 4 and 5 drop down because they evolve from that secondary plan.
CAO.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm going to defer to our Director of Planning.
Director Walsh.
Through the mayor of the council, I think that's probably not a bad suggestion. I think the secondary plan hopefully will be done a little sooner than March 24. And so the timing of the 3 initiatives listed would be coincident in scheduling or thereabouts. And it would be probably better to have it well integrated with the secondary plan and the public consultation that would involve. So it would be better to probably integrate those 3 things. So maybe item 6 could read that the completion of the secondary, including considerations for affordable housing and multi-unit development, or some other abridged wording in one consolidated initiative.
And then eliminate number 4 altogether.
4 and 5.
Oh, both.
Yeah, we'd integrate 4 and 5 into a revised number 6. They are hand in glove.
Mm-hmm. So 6 would read, so 6 becomes 4.
Right.
4 and 5 are eliminated. And
Correct.
6 reads prepare a secondary plan under the official plan for future development. And now you have to repeat everything you just said.
Having regard for increasing housing affordability through higher densities where appropriate. And secondly, through requirements for multi-unit residential development.
Housing affordability through higher densities.
Yes.
Yes, that's it. No, you said more.
And multi-unit development, which would a bit redundant, but just in case the author had different ideas in mind, it's probably best to have both tracked.
CO, any comment?
Certainly, I think he's captured it by combining it. Wordsmithing is just that, but I think that we have an understanding with respect to what that strategic initiative wants to be. And all we've done is really combine and broaden one. And I think from my perspective, that would be sufficient.
So we've combined 4, 5, and 6 into one strategic item, essentially. Any objections from members of council? Okay. Madam Clerk, do you have the wording for that? Madam Deputy Clerk, pardon me. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not a motion. What I'm planning to do is what is that you, Chief? is to pass this as amended. So if we capture all the amendments together, and as long as we all understand what those amendments are, which we'll go over before we vote, then we just pass it as amended. And I want to make sure you've captured the wording for the amendment. You're good? Thank you. Do you have more, or shall I go to Councillor Rowley? Councillor Fredis.
Thank you, Councillor Riley, to the chair, and to the CAO and staff. Item E, transit and transportation. Item 1 talks about developing and promoting alternative transportation through the installation of EV charging stations. And I'm a little troubled, if not perplexed by it. First off, the developing and promoting alternate transportation through EV charging is really beyond our purview. Between the federal and provincial governments, with their grants to Volkswagen, Stellantis, and mining consortiums operating in the Ring of Fire, they've already promoted to the tune of $30 billion, which is beyond our league. Additionally, the federal government, through the Paris Accords, has mandated 100% EVs by 2035. So I'm not sure that there's a whole lot of development and promotion opportunity there for us or necessary. I would feel more comfortable if that whole strategy were geared towards the municipality. You know, EVs, electric vehicles, are fine for light vehicles, our pickup trucks and cars, but they are not the answer for our medium and heavy duty vehicles. The answer to that would appear to be hydrogen fueled vehicles. And the mandate for that is by 2050. But hydrogen based vehicles require a whole new level of technology. Hydrogen fueled vehicles either have highly pressurized tanks, or if it's stored in liquid, they have cryogenic capability to keep the product stable. So I see over this evolutionary period a real challenge for the municipality in keeping its fleet current and operational, recognizing the fuel alternatives available to it while we try and reduce our carbon footprint. I think the last thing any of us would like to see is an EV charged snow removal piece of equipment that starts off in the wintertime with a 30% reduction in power, running out of juice halfway through its route. One can anticipate, if one goes that route, that we would have a doubling of our capital equipment and crewing needs just to handle routine snow plowing. So I think I'm concerned we might be underestimating municipal needs in addressing this change to alternative fuels and in reducing our carbon footprint. So if we could amend this strategy to reflect more municipal need than a broader global need, as this seems to be.
Thank you. CAO, any comments?
Through you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to do a bit of a tag team here. We've got various members of the committee, and I'm not the expert on EV stations and or environmental issues, but I'll just make some comments from a layperson's perspective. Certainly over the course of the last number of years, the municipality has taken the initiative and responsibility for starting to convert some of its fleet. And I think I'm going to go off the top of my head here, 2, 3, 4 various small vehicles that we now have within the fleet. And we're putting EV stations at 67 Sharp in order to facilitate that. We had also, through the budget process, and I think it may be taking us back to 2022, 2023, we had chosen to do resurface the Sobeys parking lot that we own. And at that time, we had decided to install some EV stations over there as a means of supporting the downtown in their overall strategy for the economic development downtown. And we're in various stages of development for both. I hear exactly what you're saying, Councillor. Do we have a large role to play in this? I think not, but I think we have a role to play. I think everybody has a role to play from an environmental perspective. Albeit perhaps not as large as the feds or the province, but we have a bit part to play. And that's what we're suggesting here, is that we have a bit part to play. We're going to continue to look at our fleet, and we're going to economize and or move in the direction of alternative fuels that make sense. And you talked about the heavy vehicles not making sense. Well, if it doesn't make sense, we're not going to go down that path. But when we have small vehicles that we can run around town economically, why not? That makes sense. The other thing I think we have to talk about is economic development a little bit. And I know Ben is here. And, we're one of these strategic initiatives that we have within our current plan is to talk a little bit about a new rec center, including a pool. And so our intention is to attract people to come to our community and stay in our community. And that might be an opportunity if we're attracting tournaments or whatever coming to our community to create some EV stations there at that location in order to try and facilitate tourism, facilitate parks and recreation activity within our community. So I think there's a role for us to play. I don't think it's a monumental role, but it's a role that we need to get on board with and promote. And I think coupled with this is, while we're talking about transit and transportation, we have a whole different strategic initiative that's talking about putting together a sustainability plan and putting together a climate action plan. What that's going to look like, I don't know. I can't predict that right now, but that might come forward to council with a number of different strategic initiatives that might include EV stations or some other alternatives. I'm not sure really what's coming down. So that's from a layperson's perspective. That's my point of view, but certainly Councillor Wielden, or Mr. Walsh, if you want to jump in, feel free to do so.
Any comment on this from Councillor Wielden?
Actually, CAO Castman said it very well. We're going to pursue whatever initiatives make sense towards a zero emission transportation strategy, and EV charging stations happens to be one that we're halfway through with the Sobeys parking lot. So that's why that's mentioned there. And I'm sure that'll play a role moving forward, but nobody's going to pursue transportation solutions that don't make sense.
Thank you. Director Walsh, anything to add?
Not much. I think it's been well described. I just know that hydro and some of the other power providers have provided funds in the past, and I think it'll just be important to keep our eye on those senior levels of government and agencies that are making those monies available for energy conservation purposes.
Councillor Fredis.
To the chair, thank you. To the CAO and staff, I'm delighted to see that in terms of light vehicles, we're looking at EVs. If I sound contrary to that, that wasn't my intent. But I would just like us to do this conscious of certain facts and figures. In a recent study, I read that in terms of public chargers, Ontario is third from the bottom of the list. We have 3.2 chargers per 100 vehicles. New Brunswick has 18 per 100 vehicles. The federal government calculates, and it's on their website, that Canada will need 470,000 EV charging stations by 2035. And the whole federal initiative is designed around encouraging the private sector to take on the challenge of building those facilities. I find it interesting because when you look at the dollars they've allocated $2.3 billion for purchase incentives to buyers handled through dealers, but they've only allocated 1.2 billion, or half the amount, for charging infrastructure. Recognizing how far Ontario is down on the scale. What I'm concerned is that as we look at these opportunities going forward, that we optimize the opportunities for grants so that it's not the taxpayers paying the cost for these EV stations. Top of mind, something crazy thought that occurred to me this afternoon is, we're on the road to collecting a MAT tax. Can MAT tax be repurposed somewhat to cover these if there's a tourism part to it, so that it does not become part of a budget process that becomes the responsibility of the taxpayer? A question. I don't expect an answer this evening, but it's a thought running around in the back of my head. And again, I would like our focus to be predominantly municipality, its own fleet, its own needs, recognizing that alternate fuels is in a state of flux and will be over the next decade, if not longer. And I would like us to ensure that we keep a focus on that.
So just to find out what council wants to do here. Oh, sorry, Councillor Wheeldon, you have your hand up. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. With regard to money for charging stations, the vast majority of charging stations will, of course, be in people's homes. And typically somebody purchases the hardware required to have that charging station when they purchase the electric vehicle. And so I imagine that government funding for charging stations is for public charging stations or charging stations at a destination rather than in someone's garage. So in that respect, Brighton is and should be a destination. And that's that was the push of the Northumberland EV Society, including local Brightonian members when they have approached council and other organizations in the past, advocating for EV charging stations downtown in order to bring in EV drivers to peruse our shops while they charge up. So that's why that's moving forward. CAO Castleman made the good point about the arena as well. If we've got teams coming from away to play at our arena, they will be grateful for the ability to charge there. But yeah, I mean, these things are in flux. EVs have been around for well over a decade now as well, and have become somewhat standardized with regard to charging. So I'm not sure that's going to change very quickly, but we need to make sure that we are adaptable as always. Thank you, Councillor Paredes, for your concerns.
And Councillor Wheeldon, where does council want to go with this? Keep it, change it. I'm getting a keep it nod from Councillor Botwell. Don't touch it. We know Councillor Paredes' opinion. Councillor Rowley.
We keep it as well. I'd hate to lose focus altogether by kind of scratching it, right? To keep something there.
Yeah. To amend it.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So I have a suggestion around that in a second. I assume Councillor Wheeldon, you're okay keeping it as is. Thank you. So my suggestion would be that we add a strategic item around our own public works fleet. And then that satisfies both issues. Although I suspect that a sustainability plan would create a policy around that. If we have this concern now, why don't we just put it into our strategic plan so that staff is abundantly aware of our concern and our want for a shift to a more sustainable method of transportation in the community and for public works. Is that fair? So I just need wording. Yeah. So to develop a vehicle replacement policy for municipal purposes that keeps alternative fuel sources in mind, or something like that, or proposes alternative fuel sources. Where are you pointing? So we'd add a fifth goal, develop and promote alternative transportation. I would say with alternative fuel sources for municipal purposes. Does that work? Works for Councillor Wielden. He got his thumbs up. Councillor Butwell. Councillor Rowley. Madam Clerk, did you get that wording? Yeah. Yeah. So it's almost exactly what number 1 says, except instead of EV charging stations, we're instead of installation of EV charging stations, we're using the term with alternative fuel sources for municipal purposes. Good. Anything further? Councillor Rowley.
Just a comment, and the CAO alluded to it earlier, that we keep sight of this strategic plan now, and not only just through our budget process, which we do consider, but I'd like to maybe see a bit more of a semi-annual review as to how we look at this and where we go forward year to year. That was all.
Thank you. Anything further on the motion? Sort of. Councillor Fredis.
My apologies. I just saw my piece of paper here and one more question came to mind. I noted in here somewhere that there was talk of impost fees, which I was delighted to see. Is that a realistic possibility?
CAO. Director Walsh.
Through the mayor, I'm not really sure that where that's found, but I think
it's H infrastructure. Goal 2, water and wastewater rate study, including the review of possible impost fees.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I think impost fees are not new, but they seem to be evolving through a recent court decision, Stelmach versus the City of Kingston. And I think that will be largely addressed through the work that Watson Economists will be doing for the municipality. If I can anticipate that through my question might be routed through you to the Director of Finance. I'm aware that council has that interest, and they would be probably the appropriate body to review that. In my brief discussions with one of their staff, they're aware of that court decision and are preparing to deal with that question by municipalities in general.
Director Whitfield.
So just recently, in the last couple of weeks, we started the process of the water and wastewater rate study, and that question has come up among many others. We may be looking at various changes to recommend to council, so that's one of them. I think that Watson and Associates are the experts, and whatever they recommend to council, I would imagine will be based completely on their experience.
Thank you. Does that satisfy your question, Councillor Fredis? For the moment. And so we wait. Anything further on the motion? So with that, as the mover, Councillor Fredis, if I add the word as amended to the first line before the and Councillor Butwell is the seconder, are you okay with that? Thank you. And noting that the amendments are in the housing and supply strategy, combining goals 4, 5, and 6, and adding a fifth goal to the transit and transportation strategy around alternative fuel sources for municipal purposes. Anything further on the motion? Those in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. Thank you, everyone. That brings us to the 2023 Department Work Plan Second Quarter Report, CAO. We've read this report. Do you have anything to add or highlight, sir?
I do not.
Motion before me is moved by Councillor Freda, seconded by Councillor Butwell, that Council receive the 2023 Second Quarter Work Plan Report for information. Is there any discussion? All in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. There are no notices of motion or motions. Brings us to unfinished business, being the closed session protocol. Deputy Clerk, we've read the clerk's report. Do you have anything to add or highlight?
No, I do not.
I have a motion moved by Councillor Freda, seconded by Councillor Butwell. The council receive the staff report and adopt the closed session protocol as attached to this report. Is there any discussion? Those in favor? Being none opposed, that motion's carried. There are no bylaws this evening. There are no reports of minutes of advisory committees of council and or review teams. That brings us to reports, minutes of statutory committees, boards, and external agencies. And the only ones to consider this evening are from the Lower Trent, and there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 2, it appears. With a motion moved by Councillor Rowley, seconded by Councillor Fredis, the council received the Lower Trent Conservation Authority hearing minutes and board minutes of June 8th, 2023 and July 13th, 2023. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. Brings us to correspondence. Now we have two pieces of correspondence. The first comes from the Trent Memorial Hospital Foundation. Motion before me reads, the motion before me is moved by Councillor Rowley, seconded by Councillor Fredis, that council support the request from Wendy Warner, Executive Director, Trent Memorial Hospital Foundation, to partner with the foundation and to waive all related charges for the Homebuild for Healthcare project. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Are there any opposed? The motion's carried. And Rail Safety Week, September 18th to the 24th. It's moved by Councillor Rowley, seconded by Councillor Fredis, that council support the proclamation. Request from Stephen Covey, Chief of Police and Chief of Security Officer, CN, for Rail Safety Week, September 18th to 24th, 2023. Whereas Rail Safety Week is to be held across Canada from September 18th to the 24th, 2023. And whereas 232 railway crossings and trespassing incidents occurred in Canada in 2022, resulting in 66 avoidable fatalities and 43 avoidable serious injuries. And whereas educating and informing the public about rail safety, reminding the public that railways right-of-way are private property, enhancing public awareness of the dangers associated with highway rail grade crossings, ensuring pedestrians and motorists are looking and listening while near railways and obeying established traffic laws, will reduce the number of avoidable fatalities and injuries caused by incidents involving trains and citizens. And whereas Operation Lifesaver is a public-private partnership whose aim it is to work with the public, rail industry, governments, police services, media, and others to raise rail safety awareness. And whereas CN has requested council to adopt this resolution in support of its ongoing efforts to raise awareness, save lives, and prevent injuries in communities, including our municipality. Now, therefore, it is hereby resolved to support National Railway Safety Week to be held from September 18th to 24th, 2023. Is there any discussion? All in favor? There being none opposed, that motion is carried. And that brings us to FYI correspondence, and there are three pieces of correspondence, and they are all Northumberland County updates. It's moved by Councillor Rowley, seconded by Councillor Fredis. The council received the following Northumberland County updates for information, being July 10th to the 21st, 2023, July 24th to August 4th, 2023, and August 7th to the 18th, 2023. Is there any discussion? All in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. Is there anyone in the gallery who has any questions with regard to anything that appeared on tonight's agenda? There are none noted, and I don't see anyone else on Zoom. We have no closed session this evening, which brings us to our not this evening. That's perhaps tomorrow or Wednesday evening. I have a motion moved by Councillor Rowley, seconded by Councillor Fredis, that council gives a bylaw its first, second, and third reading and finally passes on this date, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Corporation of the Municipality of Brighton Council meeting held on August 14th, 2023. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Being none opposed, that motion's carried. And a motion moved by Councillor Rowley, seconded by Councillor Fredis, that the August 14th, 2023 council meeting adjourn at 7:31 p.m. Is there any discussion? All in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.
Night, everyone. Thank you.